Okay, I'm not restarting this. I have restarted like 4 times, not knowing whether to say good morning, good afternoon. I don't even use those terms. And I also don't know what time you're listening to this. But what I am sure of is with everything that is going on globally, we all need like a good, rich dose of peace, hope, calmness, somebody to tell us that everything is going to be all right, even though we don't really have that assurance. I don't know about you, but there's like an overwhelming feeling of helplessness that comes in. And yes, you can do what as an individual you're advised to do, but then you feel like, surely how can I make it stop, right? Or how can I, if you watch the news in whichever country you're in, the government does some suspect things, you're like, how do I change that? And do I even have the energy to change that? It's just, it's a lot. And I'm sure you identify with that. It's also a very important time, crucial time, for you and I to really take care of our mental well-being. So a little later in this episode, yes, there's an 100 African story, but I did also get a friend of mine who's a clinical psychologist to come on this episode and share a few tips with us on how we can take care of our mental well-being. And what I love is she even gives some resources and hotlines that you can call for those who are in Kenya and speak to a professional who'll be able to help. I have spent 1 week indoors and I have to say it's so crazy because on one of the days I called my friend Vanessa and I was telling her, I feel so much lighter that I'm wondering if traffic and interacting with human beings during meetings is actually something that is bad for me, like has a negative effect. I don't know why I feel a bit lighter. And we had a good laugh about it, but it is a privilege to be able to work from home. There are jobs that are so essential that you cannot work from home. There are people who earn from their jobs on a daily basis. So not going to work means no money, which means no food. And so working from home is not even an option for them. So I've been working from home since last year. To be quite frank, even when I had my formal job, it was a breakfast show. So I was at work from like 5 a.m., 5:30 a.m. to about 12 noon, 1 p.m. And then I'd come home and work from home on my other projects. Yeah, so in that respect, I was working from home for a minute, but officially working from home was from last year, June. So I'm kind of already, I know my routines. I've shared this on episodes before. I use an app called Fabulous to be able to stick to a routine, wake up at 7:30. The first thing that it tells me to do is drink water, because if not, I'll forget. And I don't drink enough water to begin with. And then it tells me to exercise, make the bed, go shower. So like literally it tells me everything. And I found the routine is good not only for like efficiency, but it's something that my therapist always says is good for even your mental health, to have and work within an actual routine and stick to it as much as possible. The part that I'm having a problem with now is my sleep patterns, because the Fabulous app tells me I want to get 8 hours of sleep every night. So it calculates what time I need to sleep if I'm to be up at 7:30 a.m. and still get 8 hours of sleep. So it will send me like a reminder, like time to log off. And I just like close that notification and I keep watching the movie or whatever. So I'm still trying to work on that because like sleep is so important. But I use an app called Fabulous. So you can check it out. Maybe it'll work for you. And so this week I've managed to do a lot of work on my website. I have shifted from working in my home office stroke studio to my balcony. I don't even have any balcony furniture. I just have like fake grass on the bottom. It's a tiny balcony. And I was saving to get the actual furniture that I want. But this past week, I've just been sitting out there on a duvet with my coffee and my laptop. I was like, hang on, do I really need that furniture? So I've ghosted my fundi who's meant to be making the furniture for me, because I'm like, hang on, I'm not sure I need that. But that's been really good because I've just been people watching, working on my website, working on promotional material for Legally Clueless, which I'm so excited about. I can't wait for you guys to see it. And I had a few students because, I have a Legally Clueless residency at USIU, which is a university here in Nairobi. and teaching some of the media students how to start their own podcasts. So some of them actually checked in remotely and had a few questions on podcasting. So that was so cool. I had like my first new age, millennial, tech savvy lecturer experience. Oh my word. I also put up a video on my Instagram TV about the first day I started this podcast. You can check it out. My Instagram is Adele Onyango. And I'd always had, obviously I have my phones and I have a camera. I have a light, I have a tripod. So I had everything to actually start recording video. Then my friend had told me, because he's a videographer and he's in film, he had told me what software would be easiest for me to use to cut up my video. But I had never started recording video for myself. I'd always, I think, low-key wanted to, but this is how I know. Okay, one thing I know about myself is like words really affect me. So words that people say to me, especially people who are in like my circle of influence, I have to spend a longer amount of time. If they say something that influences me negatively, I have to spend a longer amount of time trying to like decode that so that it doesn't affect me. But back to the video thing. So I had a management team, someone who was on the team. I stopped working with them at the beginning of the year, and somebody who was on that team would always say these comments about people who make video content. I think it subconsciously influenced my decision to stay away from video. Oh my God, I don't want to say this because it just sounds so lame. But I think to some extent, I didn't want to let that person down. And so I stayed away from video, even though I knew that I had everything that I needed to start. Yeah, so it's just one of those things, like you have to be careful and screen. I know in this time we're hearing that word a lot, but screen the people who are in your circle of influence because their fears can get projected on you. Their definitions that they made from influences that have nothing to do with you can end up influencing you and stopping you from doing something that you wanted to do. It's so weird. Right? It's so weird, but I was just decoding it while I was editing the video. I was like, why haven't I ever done this? Like, really, why? Anyway, back to 1 week at home. I've also been listening to a lot of music, and I realized how impactful and influential music is in my life. And so I'm hoping that going forward on Legally Clueless, I'll just share like one song every episode that I'm really digging or is very calming to me or is very peace-inducing for that week. And I can share that with you. So for this episode, this week I've been listening to Janelle Monáe's Say You'll Go. I'll put the link to the song in the description of this episode. I don't know, that song is just so calming. I remember the first time I heard it, I didn't understand some things in the lyrics. And this is how I knew I loved the song. Imagine I went and Googled what she was referencing, like completely understood it. And then I started listening to the beat and I'm like, oh my God, the way everything just syncs to each other, it feels so good. I don't know if you have such an intimate relationship with music, but I clearly do. But check out the song. I put a link in the description. Say You'll Go by Janelle Monáe, who I absolutely love. One of my highlights in my life was getting to watch her live on stage when I went to the States for the first time in 2018. I don't know, I just find a lot of her music speaks to me. But check out that song. Let me know what you think. And speaking of, being solo this week, I mentioned that Wangoi, who is a clinical psychologist, is on this episode. So we're going to get right into her. She's sharing a few tips that you can use to take care of your mental well-being during this very hectic time.
Hello everyone, my name is Wangoi Wanjiro. I am a therapist. I would like to share just a few tips on how one can stay calm and maintain their mental health well-being during this time. And by this time, I mean during social distancing, during these times where there's a lot of uncertainty on when this is going to end in terms of the social distancing itself, working from home, end the virus. I think that's the what needs to end first before everything else can end. So, and there's a lot of uncertainty about that globally, not just here in Kenya. So, and with that comes a lot of just uncertainty within ourselves, a lot of anxiety. With the social distancing, definitely there are issues that come out of it, mental health issues that come out of it. There are some of us who are alone. There's also the issues of depression coming up. There's a lot of these issues of substance use coming up. So I would like to share a few tips on how to just maintain your well-being, your mental health well-being during this time. Number one, I would say block news notifications, filter out where you get your information from. Try to choose credible sources like the World Health Organization, going to government websites, based websites on social media instead of just getting retweets or just Facebook post from anyone. Don't spend a lot of time watching news channels. Limit the amount of time that you're watching that, because there's nothing else they're going to be talking about apart from COVID. Limit that. Also, you can mute or even leave groups where that is all that is being discussed, especially on WhatsApp. There's a lot of forwards and a lot of ones that are crazy even about the virus, the ones we get from our aunties, the ones that you can tell really this person didn't even read the content of this forward is, they just sent it. I would suggest really trying to filter out and curate what you watch, listen to, and even read. You have a choice in doing that, so do it. You can also ask people who keep text sending you crazy stuff or even jokes. Even on WhatsApp status, you see people posting jokes about COVID. But if those are triggering to you, don't view those people's statuses or ask the person that is constantly sending you information on COVID not to do it. The next thing is to acknowledge what you can and can't control. For example, the people posting their status that you can't control, but you can control whether you view that status or not. Also, in terms of your safety measures that you can take, do your part, keep busy, and maintain a routine. I know it's very easy right now as we are working from home to sort of fall out of our schedules, and routine and schedules are really paramount in maintaining mental health well-being, even though most of them, it sounds boring. Routine seems like, robotic, but they're very good in sort of maintaining calmness in your mind. So do create your own routine. I'm not saying you wake up the same time you would wake up to go to work, but have a routine that when I wake up, usually first I do, literally speaking, like maintain a routine that if you're in boarding school, not waking up at the same time, no. But if you're in boarding school, you wouldn't go to class and your bed is not done. So, there are things that you wouldn't be out somewhere and you haven't showered for I don't know how many days. So just a routine that encompasses all of your well-being in terms of physical well-being. If you don't go to work without taking a shower, don't start working without taking a shower. Shift the space. Especially, it's very tempting to spend the whole week in bed, working from bed, watching Netflix from bed, just being in bed the whole time. But do make changes. Give your body some signs to know that it's morning. Obviously, eat well. I know there's a lot of eating happening, but make sure you're eating healthy. Put in some time for just you time. Usually we do this at work, when it's lunchtime, most of us we walk away and we just go, even if it's eating while on our phone. Do that. Don't be tempted to be overly productive because there is no that time for travel. Don't be tempted to take breaks. The next thing, obviously, take care of your emotional well-being. Do reach out to people, because with social distancing, a lot of us will end up isolated, or even we are with people, but we are isolated from the people we would rather be with. So do keep in touch with people. The other thing is practice a lot of mindfulness and grounding exercises, as well as just simple breathing exercises. Engage in hobbies that you enjoy, whether it's reading a book, baking, literally even just sitting on your balcony. Actually, when is the last time you did that? Whatever you enjoy doing, do schedule it, because this is your schedule that you're creating. This is not a schedule that's being created by HR. So you have the opportunity to do it as you would like to do it, as long as things are getting done. on time. Don't keep the worries to yourself. First, journal. Journaling is key part in sort of getting whatever is inside of you out. Write it out. Speak to someone that you trust, whether it's a loved one, your therapist, friends. I think you need to know that you're not going through it alone. There are a lot of people who are sharing your worries right now. So the more you speak about it, the more you'll find that this is not personal. This is not your anxiety. This is not your issue to worry about. This is a global issue. There are also a lot of online forums right now on this issue itself, the issue of, for example, depression during COVID. There's issue of anxiety, dealing with substance use, alcoholism during COVID. There's a lot of those forums, and even forums on like living with your parents during COVID. There's forums on everything, especially on Reddit. So get on there, see what people are talking about, contribute, start your own. You don't have to be, not start your own as in start your own forum, but you can start your own conversation on those forums. People don't generally care who is starting, but there's a lot of contribution and a lot of empathic engagement that is happening. The next thing is, please note that your feelings, like I said, this is not a you thing. This is just a global issue. So you have to sort of educate your mind. Let it know that, yes, your feelings, they're coming up, you're scared, but you have to let it know that this is not a me issue. You have to sort of correct your feelings and your thoughts. Make sure to sort of do some restructuring of them. Yes, they are true, but they may not be correct. Your mind doesn't actually know what is going on in reality. So let your mind know when those thoughts come up, let your mind know what the reality is before it produces, feelings that are definitely going to affect your soul. Do sort of mother what gets into your inner child. And by mothering what goes into your inner child, I mean you have the opportunity to sort of challenge your thoughts. And by challenging your thoughts, you make a difference on what goes to your soul. And by doing that, that is, your soul is your inner child. So that actually prevents a lot of anxiety. You know that your soul is where the worries come from. If you're able to sort of restructure your thoughts, whatever worries, they're not just falling onto your soul. There is information that is being put into them. Do some fact checking on on your thoughts and your feelings before you let them affect you. The next thing, if you're alone at this time, try to maintain social contact with those that are close to you. Set time actually for social contact. And if you're in situations that are triggering, for example, you're living with people right now who are triggering to you, try to limit the amount of time that you're actually in the same room with them, or even watch out for moments where you're just being drawn into conversations that will end up in tears, literally. Just walk away. It might feel like, your skin is going to peel off, but just walk away, or just assertively tell them that you would like them to not engage in that conversation, or that they maintain boundaries. Lastly, like I said, eat well, take your meds, sleep well. Sleep is very key in maintaining your health during this time. So do sleep well. I know it's very tempting to just sleep at 4 a.m. There's enough to watch. Avoid going into that, because if you affect your sleep cycle, you affect when you take your medication. Your sleep cycle is key in maintaining even your mood. So make sure that is not too drastically shifted. Then last thing, sorry, if you're working towards sobriety at this time, make sure that you maintain the same rules that you had for yourself. You maintain the same behaviors that you took up, that you were practicing before this thing happened. It's very tempting to just, because there's a lot of time, so it's very tempting to just go back into using whatever substance it is that you're trying to gain sobriety from. Remember why you did it. If it gets to a point where you feel completely that you're going to do it, first reach out to someone that is supportive of your journey before doing it. And even if it happens, still do reach out to someone. And even if it happens, the next day is a fresh new day that you can start over again. If anyone around you, or if you yourself experiences thoughts of suicide, you can always reach out to your therapist, your doctor if you have one, the healthcare facility that you go to, or even hotlines like Befrienders Kenya has one. The number is 0736 242304, and then there's another hotline which is 0800723253. I hope the tips were helpful. Obviously, I am sure there are other things that you do because you know yourself best. So I'm sure there are other things that you do that work for you. Whatever is working for you, do it. Cha muhimu is that we come out of this healthy.
I'm so thankful Wangoi agreed to be on this episode and shared those amazing tips. I know what I did immediately the corona cases in Kenya were announced. I left certain WhatsApp groups that were just, too much. Noise, panic, people who are not doctors all of a sudden deciding they're doctors. Like, it was just, too noisy. I didn't even explain why I left them. I just up and left. I truly believe in routines, sticking to them, and create a realistic routine as well, so that you don't end up disappointing yourself because you couldn't stick to the routine when really you created a routine that you were never going to be able to stick to in the first place. I've said this before, breathing exercises work wonders for me, especially when I have my anxiety. I have used some grounding exercises, I think only once, when I was like at the beginning of a panic attack. It didn't really work at that time because so much was happening, but these are exercises that do work. And if you do feel like you're in a space that you need to talk to someone, please call the numbers that Wangui shared. But I do have an 100 African story for you in this episode. I was fortunate to be able to record Noah, who is from Baringo in Kenya, a place called Eldama Ravine, and he shares a story of being in class 4, drinking Busaa and Chang'aa, losing a friend to those local brews. Okay, I'm giving away too much from his story. Just listen to it.
100 African stories.
There is no proper life that you live in university as a musician.
If I constantly just walked around feeling sorry for myself, I'm never going to get anything done.
There was a bit of frustration in between all of that.
I've been breaking my back for this company.
Therapy is not for the weak or for the crazy.
Stories from Africa.
I'm Mwalimu Kimboy, or call me Noah Kimboy. I'm from Baringo County, place known as Eldama Ravine. I will start from my primary school life. I grew up. I was not raised up. I went to nursery school when I was 11 years. Can you imagine 11 years? My father and my mother got separated and I was to go with my mom. My father had 3 wives, one of which is known and others are not known. We went to our uncle's place or our grandpa's place. We stayed there and we used to go to school. I went to school when I was 11 and the place where the school was located was 11 kilometers. It is unfortunately I was 11 and going to 11 kilometers from the place I was there. Hilly mountains you pass through and then there was snakes on the road. Every day at around 12 or 1 to 1 when the sun is so hot, you may find snakes. Afternoon classes was not there because of the sun, scorchy sun. When I was in standard 4, we used to take Busaa, and ugali. You know Busaa? Busaa is a local word, drink which it is alcohol. So we used to take Busaa and ugali. Even when I'm in class, I'm drunk. Yes. My English teacher, who was called Pauline, realized that I was drunk. And I used to until class 7. I used to take with my friend. When I was in class 7, I went back to my father's place. And when I was there, because I used to take Busaa, so I used to sneak out from the school to take Busaa and come back to class. I met some friends and we used to go out together. So, and now the school which I transferred, it was so strict that if you miss one lesson, you will go and call your parent. And my father was so strict. He was disciplinarian. One day we sneak and take Busaa. And there was even Chang'aa. Chang'aa is a local one. So we used to take Chang'aa and Busaa. So we were drunk. Our English teacher realized that as we were drunk, and we used to take with onions, these green onions, so that the smell cannot be noticed. Yeah.
So explain that to me. You used to drink the Busaa, eat the onion, or the onion is in the Busaa?
No, eat the onion so that it can dilute the smell. Someone cannot realize easily. So now, because she realized that we were drunk, she called deputy a teacher. He told us, where did you go to take this? And we told him. And I'm sorry to say this because one of my friends whom we used to take Busaa together is now arrested because of continuous taking of alcohol. He took a lot of alcohol, so he died because of Chang'aa. I was around 14 years. I was around 14 years, 15 that time. When I was in class 8, I repeated class 8 because the first time I attempted for my KCPE, I was drunk. And the second time now, I got reform. Yes, I went back to church. Then the pastor was calling for salvation. So I went and I was prayed for. And then that time I went back. And I told my parents I want to go back to do my KCP. From that day, niliacha. For me, I didn't see even my father for around 16 years. And my mother, after separation, went to another place. He used to come to see me, but we didn't stay with our parents. And when I joined Form 1, I call it high school, my small paradise, because I joined with 3,000 out of 28,000 fees. I was told to go back to bring money. Imagine 3,000, the deficit of 25,000. Nikakata. I told them, siesi and I nilala hapa ama muniue. My stepmother was very disturbed and she told them that let's go back, go and find some money. So at that time I was so stubborn. I didn't want to go back because I know the place I was from. So nikakata. I told siesi enda, nikalia na nikapotea kwa shule. Watchman akanipata. He took me back to the principal's office. Head boy was called and a teacher told him to take care of me. And he said, tomorrow come back to my office. Then I went to dorm. I went back, I slept. Morning at 6, I went to the a teacher's office. And I found him. He was called Chang'aa, and he told me, how many marks did you got? I told him 326. And he said, do you want to learn? Why do you want to stay? I want to learn because mistaki nyumbani. He told me, go to class. I don't know what happened. I don't know if he called my mother. I don't know. When it was the time for holidays, I stayed at school. So now my parents at home wanted me to go back, but I stayed at school. When I was in Form 3, they came to school to look for me. That time I was holding 3 positions. I was CU chair coordinator, I was SDA chairman, and I was environmental secretary at school. What I've learned about life is that life changes every now and then. And if you are not bold enough, you will lose hope. If you are not bold enough to to withstand these challenges of life, you will not make it in life. I had, when I was school of education, we had one of us who finally hung himself because of such challenges in life. And I felt bad because if you have any problem, you share first before you decide on anything else. Take care of themselves, to remember their homes, where they came from. If you know where you came from to after where you are, you can see far.
Catch our next African stories in the next episode.
I think one of the very many powers that stories have is that it allows you to understand that what is normal for you is surely not normal just down the road from you. You know what I mean? We're all in the same world, possibly in the same country or even the same county, same hood, same school, same workplace. But our stories are just so different. And I'm so thankful that I came across Noah while I was doing the Legally Clueless tour. And he was so honest about his story. And he's in such a powerful space right now. I really hope that this episode gave you a few tips to help you keep your mental space healthy during these hectic times. If you're a small business owner, I really do feel for you. It's a tricky space, but being the crazy optimist that I am, I'm sure everything will work out in the end. Do remember to join the Legally Clueless tribe. You can find us on Instagram. I promise we're not a cult, even though when I'm saying this, it sounds like we are. You can find us on Instagram at Legally Clueless Podcast. Once again, like I always say in every single episode, thank you so much for listening to this podcast. And that's it for this episode of Legally Clueless. You can share this podcast with your friends. You can keep it for yourself. I'm not judging. Just make sure you're here next week for the next episode.